You're watching Beyond Markets. Welcome, I'm Esther, Awoniyi. Many thanks for joining us. On today's show, we'll discuss trends that will shape the tech landscape this year in Nigeria. You can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can follow my Twitter handle too at Esther Awoniyi. Now, with the advancement in artificial intelligence, automation, 5G networks, and augmented reality seen in 2018, we'll find out what trends will shape the tech landscape, especially in Africa this year. Ayotunde Coker, CEO of Rack Center, joins us now for this discussion. Ayotunde, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. The tech space is always I'll tell you that it's always. I always find it so interesting because it's fast moving. There's so many trends that come out. Some more interesting than others. Some are just outrightly revolutionary. But let's talk about 2018 before going to 2019. Those trends that emerged in 2018 that you would consider to be your highlights for the year.
Yes. Okay. One highlight for the year is broadband penetration. The NCC stated that broadband penetration had just exceeded 30%, about 30.9%.
Oh, is that good?
It's good,
from
yes.
Where we're coming from?
Well, from an entire country point of view, we set a target and the target was met. So that's a good thing. But also, if you look at certain parts of the country, broadband penetration is bound to be much higher. For instance, in Lagos, you have significantly higher broadband penetration. Why did I pick that out? Because that underpins getting a lot of the innovation out there. If you don't have that baseline, you don't get the innovation out there. Now, if you look at other innovations that through the year, I was actually quite surprised at how real blockchain started to become, with some real examples we've got being implemented, and I expect those implementations to come through in 2019. And also some of the advancement of FinTech. It really has become.
I know I had several conversations
real.
about, and most of my conversations last year were usually FinTechs versus the banks, especially, I mean, encroaching as it were, in quote, on the banking space, and how it could actually change banking as we know it in the future.
Banking for many years now has been on the trend of being changed, really. 15 years ago, I was director of digital services at Egg Bank in the UK, one of the leading internet banks at the time. We did FinTech at that time, and it was actually disrupting the normal banking business models. And that is going to happen and continue to happen. You see, the banks that actually are able to bring the technology into modified business models and really work out how to use the technology to drive efficiency, to get much closer to the customer, get into the rhythm of their customer's life, will be the winners. It's one thing stating, I'll do that, I've got the technology. The banks actually really explore how to make this happen and examples of where they've happened before. And that therefore means that it's not just going to be about a banking app. It's going to be how getting into the rhythm of the customer's life, customers being able to dance across channels seamlessly, having a single experience that works for them. On the one instance, you're using a mobile phone, you may be using a tablet, you may be going into to call a contact center. The bank actually has to have a proper view of the customer and also the products and services they deliver through those channels. That's why you see you're getting this convergence of the FinTech companies and the banks. FinTech isn't just on its own. There will be successful FinTech companies and payment companies. That will happen. But the real winners when it comes to the combination of both are the banks and the technology companies that best amalgamate the technology and the business processes, putting the customer at the center.
And do you think that, the requirement or the willingness to make the necessary investments? Because, if you're trying to get to, because, customer preferences, they differ. And I know that the banks are trying to look at the individual customer, and we're talking about millions of customers here. So getting to know the needs, the requirements, just even the desires of, someone even said to me once, even before the customer knows that he or she desires something, the bank wants to know what the future desire will be. And I'm telling myself, okay, well, that's a lot. Are you willing to make that kind of investment?
Well, the competition will drive that. And the banks will emerge that disrupt the system. And the progress to make will make banks who want to stick into the old ways of doing business sit up and realize that they have to embrace the new technologies, and therefore it's going to happen. Now, when it comes to, that's why I talked about putting the customer at the center, driving everything through customer experience and being in the rhythm of your customer's life. If you start to add these technologies with artificial intelligence that picks up data about the customer, location-based information. The mobile phone has information about your location. You can engage with the customer with the permissions that allows you to understand where their location is. For instance, if you travel, you can tell this customer is in front of an ATM. That means anywhere in the world, okay? And they use that ATM. You know immediately through technology that that's them using the ATM with their card, and you can actually use different security profiles. So there's a lot of artificial intelligence that companies, not just bank, companies can use now to get to understand the patterns of their customers. Some individuals travel significantly, they travel very, very often. The data allows you to understand that. So you start to get analytics coming into the big data to understand, and then you start to get into not just a matter of in a static way, your customers. You then start to get into dynamic analytics to understand what your customer needs next. If you look back 3 years ago, 4 years ago, some of these technologies you feel and solutions and business models you feel look so far ahead. Suddenly they're there. Suddenly they're real. So it's, I would say that any chief executive that ignores the kind of technology trends that we're seeing now do that at their own shareholder peril.
What about, earlier we were talking about even the agriculture space. We're also seeing disruptions in that space too, perhaps even across the value chain. What can you tell us about that?
Do technology is going to make Africa overcome big infrastructure deficits like roads and so on and stuff like that. With agriculture, you find payment systems are being used to secure the payment value chain, so you don't get leakages. And that's been a key underpinning technology in the transformation we've been seeing in agriculture here in Nigeria. You'll start to see different models come up for different industries as well. So you start to get the insurtech, for the insurance company, and you start to see HMOs, that's the medical insurance companies, with the hospitals starting to collaborate using technologies to give customers choice. You can actually decide, you've got these Fitbits now that check your blood pressure and so on, that link to your phone and can tell you if there's an issue, tells you where there's the nearest doctor's surgery you're entitled to see with the HMO you're in. You get an automatic clearance and you're automatically booked to see the doctor. That makes it much more efficient. And we talk about financial inclusion. This actually also brings about medical inclusion, bringing many, many more of the large population we have that are not in the medical insurance net into that net. If companies here in Nigeria don't do that and don't face the innovation they need to face with technology that's freely available now, other companies will come in and disrupt them over here. They become obsolete. And obsolescence happens very, very quickly.
So it takes us back to that point where we talked about, those willing to make the investment. If you don't, the competition takes that from you.
Yes, and then you're playing catch up. The only way you can successfully play catch-up is to then find out an innovation that actually allows you to leapfrog, and it's not a good place to be.
Let's go back to now into 2019, what we can expect for 2019. Broadband for a country like Nigeria, I suppose, would also be key. So if we reach that target of 30%, but looking at the population, looking at how the urban areas are exploding, especially like a place like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, those are the key populated commercial cities. Would you say that perhaps we need to move faster, or should we just stick to that pace that we've been on?
We need to move faster. I believe that, the ecosystem needs to be incentivized to deliver, broader, faster broadband. It's underpinning technology. One of the things I see really happening now, there's a term that's now being used globally about the edge. Data centers currently would host these services in the US and elsewhere. But then you've got the latency of the data traveling all the way there and back again. You have problems with customer experience and so on. So the term that's being used globally is the data center will move to the edge. So there's this term called edge data centers. You know.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Well, what's happening now is that you will find that the consumption of those cloud services will now come to where it's being used here now. So we deliver those cloud services to the edge. You hold your data locally. Sovereign data rules are catered for, but then there's very much less latency, and it enables these technologies to work much more efficiently. And therefore, you will start to find that here the adoption of these cloud services that we hold locally will significantly grow exponentially. We're certainly prepared for that. We're seeing a growth in the consumption of cloud services that we deliver here locally.
Will that come with lower cost or not yet? Not just yet?
It'll be a comparable cost, but much higher customer experience.
Okay.
If we do that at comparable cost, we're actually out delivering our competition globally because we have value chain higher costs in the system here.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we do that. We have to out deliver to be equal, and we do that over here. I mentioned that because it's one thing we do, but it's the reality of what we'll face. But it's also underpinning infrastructure, like broadband penetration, for instance. I believe you see 4G becoming much more pervasive across the country as a way of delivering the broadband to the point of use. 5G is something else that will start to emerge. I don't think significantly so in 2019.
In Nigeria?
In Nigeria.
Because I'm thinking to myself, yeah, we're still trying to rolling out 4G, but 5G is already upon us. And I'm thinking,
yes.
I mean, can there be an overlap? Would we have to
Yes,
play
there will
catch
be.
up at some
Yes,
point?
there will be. Well, that's what you're finding around the world. There's 4G, the 5G is starting to get over the hype. It's still in sort of some of the hype stage, actually, and even in advanced economies. But as you know, over here, we tend to, we can latch onto good technology very quickly and execute. So you'll find an overlap. And 5G is going to be tuned to those communities where the value it delivers in significantly higher speeds will be appreciated by the customers in those areas. So in Nigeria, you'll probably find this in more of the dense urban areas like Lagos, Abuja, and so on. But what's going to be pervasive is 4G to deliver broadband to the endpoints of use. I think in 2019, you'll also find blockchain starting to become much more real.
Ayotunde, we'll take a short break. Thank you so much for your time so far.
Okay.
We'll come back and continue from where we left off. I've been speaking to Ayotunde Coker. He's the CEO of RAC Center, and we're looking at some of the tech trends that will dominate the space here in Nigeria this year. Okay, if you're just joining us, Ayotunde Coker, CEO of RAC Center, is with me today, and we are discussing trends that will shape the tech landscape in Nigeria this year. Ayo, thank you so much for your time so far. Okay. We're talking about 4G and the required, if we're seeing the required amount of investments in the space. Would you say that if we're to move on to 5G, okay, I think we already talked about the opportunity to leapfrog and that overlapping that we're going to see. Okay, then let's move on to blockchain then. We saw, the adoption, albeit slow. I remember I had a discussion with a senior customs official last year, and he talked about how they were actually looking to begin to implement blockchain. But for you, what is going to be that one deciding factor in terms of how we can deploy blockchain, or perhaps even take it a step further?
It's going to be in phases, and you'll find business issues that need to be addressed. And once you have one that's actually proven in the use of the blockchain technology, that the blockchain is not the end in itself. It's just now underpinning technology that enables you to deliver something else. It's a bit like the land is another example that's being used. Irrevocable contracts, for instance, are the areas where you'll have blockchain solution become much more effective. And you'll see governments, state governments actually more, because they tend to be, the state governments here in Nigeria, own the land, they manage the land, and they will deploy solutions in that area, as well as some of the other solutions you find in ports. In the legal space, we start to use blockchain. I think blockchain is actually going to be as transformational as we found the World Wide Web being, because it wouldn't stand just on its own. It will stand in supporting other solutions as well. artificial intelligence, one of the things that's really also come out a lot in the last few months, in the last year or so, is autonomy. Autonomous everything, you know. You have autonomous drones, autonomous cars, and so on. You'd actually have blockchain in the solution there that allows you to link to the insurance processes and so on, that negotiates between autonomous things going on.
Okay.
Some of these technologies feel like they're such a long way away, but we find the uses for us here that actually works best in the environment we have here in Nigeria and also in the rest of Africa.
We'll be able to just, how do I put it, make it work for us? I mean, tailor-made for our current development level, as it were. I mean, we're still trying to get infrastructure. I mean, when it comes to power, I mean, we're still lacking in power, infrastructure, even from the mobile networks. There's still a lot of investments, a lot of infrastructure that needs to go into all of that. So that's my fear, the fact that we may find ourselves doing a lot of leapfrogging or catching up, as it were. Is that what you foresee to it?
There's core infrastructure that we need that gives us efficient value chains. Power being one, roads being one, air being one, and rail, you know, and of course the health framework and so on. We shouldn't let technology mean we stop investing in those areas. But technology gives us the means to actually innovate around some of these constraints we have. Who would have thought mobile telephony would have worked so well, having masts everywhere with generators and diesel being the whole diesel supply chain for mass, but we innovate around that and we made it work. So I'm not saying we should actually continue to invest, because the efficient value chains make us a much more efficient economy. But technology will continue to ride over that, enable us to overcome some of those constraints, but also actually be more efficient in the way we deliver some of those solutions. As well, intelligent use of power, intelligent ways of paying for power that you use. We'll find a lot of these innovations are coming in. I'll give you an example. Who would have thought Google Maps would be so successful? You could be anywhere in Nigeria as long as you've got decent connectivity. The map works. It tells you in real time where the traffic is. And that's innovation that's got overcome some of the infrastructure issues that we have.
Absolutely. What about cybersecurity? I mean, the deeper these companies are going into the lives or being intertwined in the lives of individuals, that's come with a lot of exposure. There's a lot of data, personal data, you know, flying all around, and so obviously the issue of security has come onto the front burner. We had issues last year, but for 2019, what do you foresee? Are we going to see smarter hackers? Are we going to see the companies themselves trying to stay one step ahead, at least, you know, having enough of the equipment that can help them detect?
Security is always a moving target. It doesn't stay. You're right. I like that term, smarter hackers and then smarter solutions. You always have to stay ahead of the smarter hackers. And it's across the board. I mean, as soon as you start getting data move across networks and different solutions and so on, you know, cybersecurity is an ongoing issue. A significant part of cybersecurity is to ensure people are actually aware, because you can be as secure as you like. If you have the easiest entry point is usually the individual that actually doesn't follow some of the rules, normal rules. Security is starting to become a part of our life etiquette, if you see what I mean. And, you know, some of those etiquette rules that you follow, and if you don't, you get compromised. And identity theft, you know, it starts to become a problem. Not just the fact that there's been hacking, then you can get identity thefts that can cause other problems. And you have identity theft protection systems coming in now. You also have increasingly sophisticated approaches to monitoring security for companies. That's why a lot of this is now being increasingly outsourced. You now have security solutions in the cloud. That means that you have collective solutions that keep ahead of the smart hackers. If you had to, as a company, invest in all of those things, and you have to continue to innovate on it, and it's harder to be ahead of the hackers. But if you actually work out as part of your overall architecture and solution for security, partners that actually stay ahead of the game, then you're more likely to succeed. So you're now starting to get security solutions in the cloud. It's a very significant problem that has to be invested in to curtail. The hackers move, technology changes. As soon as the technology changes, new technologies come in, you have new opportunities for security breaches. You have to very, very quickly make sure that you take those into account. So you tend to find you have to continuously innovate on security, but also continuously educate people on making sure that they actually also do take care of their own security as well.
Absolutely. Now, for the global trends on the global front this year, what are those trends that you are perhaps keeping an eye on, that have perhaps started a few years ago, last year, that you will be keeping an eye on in 2019?
Autonomy is one that keeps coming up. There are different descriptions. If you look at some of the research houses, Gartner and so on, Forrest and so on, they've got various views around what the future would look like, but they all actually distill to very, very similar things. You'll have pervasiveness now increasingly of Internet of Things. Okay, it's a general term, but it's actually starting to become real, even for us here. That just means intelligent devices around the place. We've got more intelligent watches now. The phones are becoming more intelligent. Those are Internet of Things because they use data from the internet. We used to typically, previously, you'd have people walk around with about 3 devices on them that connect to the internet. Now you'll find that's growing, it's growing very rapidly. You suddenly find around you, you've probably got 6 or 7 connected to the internet, including your car, including services that you have at home. And now it's no longer becoming science fiction. It's becoming real.
Absolutely.
So you find that's one key piece. Autonomy, increasing autonomy, autonomous cars, autonomous drones, and so on.
So speaking about autonomous cars, sorry to butt in. I mean, I was watching on CNBC International, some major car automakers rolling out the self-driving cars. I mean, obviously they ran into some headwinds last year, but it looks like they're beginning to refine the technology and getting better at it. And I'm just thinking, for Nigeria, at what point could that happen? Are we still 9 years away from? I mean, we talk about the opportunity for leapfrogging and things overlapping, but for us, how soon are we? How close are we to having self-driving cars?
Well, I think autonomy has a continuum that you need to think about it on. Do you want a totally self-driving car, or do you want a car that has a level of intelligence where it gathers information from the internet and other information around the place to make decisions, where you still have the driver's interaction, but it's actually helping the driver make better decisions and taking the stress out of driving. So you'll find increasing autonomy coming in over here in a whole set of different types of scenarios, and will emerge very, very quickly because we've got a huge amount of innovation going on here, making those technologies real for the applications.
What about talent? I mean, skill. I mean, we're talking about companies that need to begin to deploy some of these innovations. What about people who are actually going to be in the forefront of deploying or implementing in terms of everyday, day-to-day skill?
From my experience, the talent pool we have and the young Nigerians we have is fantastic. It's amazing. The right thing is the leadership context. Set that context, unleash their creativity, and it's amazing what you get. At Rack Center, we've got all my staff is Nigerian, and in the last year we've won global awards in company of some of the leading global companies in the Europe, for instance. One of my staff actually won an award in the UK, a global award as the data center manager of the year last year. Nigerian, went to university in Nigeria, went to school in Nigeria. His track record is down here. He gets accolades from partners that we work with and so on. We decided that we would put forward an individual for that award this year. Got to be a finalist, top 3 in the world. And then we had to re-justify his excellence for why he should be top, and he won.
Thank you so much, Ayotunde. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for talking to us today. We appreciate your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I've been speaking to Ayotunde Coker. He's the CEO of Rack Center. We've been taking a look at the tech trends that we should expect to dominate the space in 2019. But that's it on today's show. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Remember, you can watch our previous episodes of Beyond Market on our website, cnbcafrica.com. You can also stay engaged with the hashtag, and you can send me tweets too. Follow me on at Esther Awoniyi. For myself and the team, have a great day.